everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Kashrus, presented by the Kashrus Awareness Project in conjunction with Torah Anytime. Today, I am privileged to be joined by Rabbi Sholem Fishbane, Kashrus Administrator of the Chicago Rabbinical Council and Executive Director of ACO. Thank you, Rabbi Fishbane.
Thank you for having me.
Today, we'd like to discuss common product, consumer-related questions before Pesach. I'm sure you're inundated every year. Can I buy this without Ashgacha for Pesach? Can I buy that? So on and so forth. I'm traveling on Pesach. I don't have food with me. What can I buy? Can I buy, a very common question is spring water, things like that. What are the common questions that you found as far as products and certification with regard to Pesach?
Yes, by far it is our busiest time of year. And as we get closer to Pesach, you have the people going through their medicine cabinet. You can see, okay, how about this? How about that? And they're reading these words they can't. It's great. Right. It's such a wonderful thing.
SD Alcohol 40 is the favorite.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And Klal Yisrael is just Baruch Hashem. They're shomer and they want to do the right thing. So we created a website called AskCRC.org, where there's two clicks. There's year-round and Pesach. And you just press it, and most of your questions will be found in AskCRC.org. So just that you should know that as a good for consumers. So common questions, oh my gosh. I think there's before Pesach, and then there's on Pesach. On Pesach, the most common question is bottled water, like you mentioned. You're in a park, Chalmai trip, you know you can't get much, but what about bottled water? Is there a difference between mineral oil, spring water, this water, that water? So here's the basic thing. Bottled water is fine for Pesach if it's just plain water. Now, if it says mineral water, that's almost always going to be fine, as long as it doesn't have something in it that's called calcium citrate, okay, or vitamins. Then it's a problem. But if you see other things in there like calcium chloride, magnesium oxide, magnesium sulfate, these are the common ones. Potassium bicarbonate, potassium chloride, sodium bicarbonate, sodium chloride. I'm going to give you a test afterwards if you knew all those. Those are all fine. The one you want to stay away from, again,
calcium citrate, or if it says caffeinated. Caffeinated is, you know how they get caffeine? It doesn't grow on the ground. It's a fascinating subject, and basically they buy the caffeine from, let's say, the coffee makers. Now, you have a coffee bean's fine. How do you extract out caffeine from coffee? There's several ways. One of the ways is ethyl alcohol, and that's the way ethyl acetate, where it could be chametz, and you actually extract it and it has chametz in it. They have this caffeine powder and they sell it to water companies, soda companies. So that's why if something is decaf, you always want to be aware of it. You want to avoid caffeinated water or minerals that have the calcium citrate. Does it make a difference if it's spring water or purified water?
No.
Same thing. The same concerns. Calcium citrate is a problem. The others that you mentioned are not.
Right. And obviously flavored water you want to stay away from.
Right.
One of the common questions also is, what about seltzer? It's a whole subject. It's not about the water, but it's the bubbles. How they make the bubbles, they do take the bubbles from companies that produce. They make
carbonation?
Yes, they make carbonation, but it's a byproduct of something. No one just makes that. They're doing other things. And many times it could come, in America mostly, from corn, which is a kidney shenestanu. Right. That's just a shiloh for your Rav. And some places actually buy it from beer companies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but again, it's the same shiloh halacha. Is a gas considered something Davar should you have to worry about or not? That's a shiloh for halacha. Right. So those that, like the CRC, if we give a hechsher on seltzer, we make sure that the bubbles come from petroleum, which is innocuous, as opposed to kidneys or this.
Interesting. Okay.
So that would be another question. I don't know, you're out there and you're hungry, it's Cholamoid or beforehand, what about fish? So, most of the fish that is caught in the seas, whether it's in Alaska or whatnot, and they want to sell it to you fresh, what they'll do is they'll flash freeze it, okay? And if they catch it and they freeze it right away, and then when you thaw it, it's as if they just caught it and it's really fresh and it looks fresh, they'll sell it as fresh. Now, how do you flash freeze?
So sometimes they'll add in it corn solids to make that nice thin
Like a layer?
that it doesn't allow any oxygen to get in. So when you're buying your fish on Yom Tov or even before Yom Tov, you should, and it doesn't come with a hechsher obviously for Pesach, you should wash it off in case there's some residue of this kitnius, which is batal b'roi, but nevertheless, Am Yisrael Kodesh, we want to get rid of all that. So that's another example. And speaking of kitnius, I want to share with you something fascinating. As you may know, I'm a shoichet myself, and I spend a lot of time in the Beis Shchita. And one of the things that they do is when they mark something kosher, they're going to write on it kosher, chalak, Beis Yosef, Mohuder, minimum, whatever. And also even the USDA, the grade A, grade B, they stamp with ink, edible ink. Did you ever buy like a big roast?
And it has
Like you see like blue or maybe red. That's actually edible ink. And edible ink is, depending on the country, it could be kitnius or it could actually be chometz.
Wow.
So here's just a great halachic shaila. If you drink that ink, they'll send you to the hospital. But in the small amount that it's stamping, it is allowed. So what is the status of that ink in halacha? It's a great shaila. We at the CRC require all of our caterers or anyone preparing for Pesach, when you get a piece of meat, especially by Pesach, people buy those huge roasts, and it has in it. You got to take it off according to our policy because it's a shiloh of kitnias and in certain areas maybe even chametz. Again, I'm not saying those that don't is a problem because you may want to say it's nifsal, but you should know this. So that's another interesting thing that comes across our desk.
Now, again, going back to the person who's on a trip, could they buy? We're trying to help them.
Yes.
They want to know if they could buy water. You went through water, fish. Could they buy? Are there nuts that they could buy? Is there any other product that they could buy?
So nuts actually that's a great example. So whole, slivered, chopped nuts, whether in the shell or not the shell, that are just raw, or even what they call steam pasteurized, that's fine. But if it says on it blanched, if it says on it roasted, that's not okay. Or let's say it's not blanched or roasted, but it's finely ground into powder, that needs a hechsher because they put other things in there that it should flow nicely. Sometimes it will say BHT or BHA, which is a preservative, is added to help it. While that inherently is not an issue, but they do add other things to the BHT, BHA, which could be a problem for Pesach.
Now, these items do need hashgacha in general.
So it's really the same thing,
It's a related thing.
It's interrelated. For Pesach, obviously, we're more machmer,
Right.
but certainly, whole nuts or chopped nuts that are not roasted or blanched during the year is fine. Is fine to go. The one exception we have found to the nut category is pecans, depending where you are, and it's very interesting. We certify some pecan companies. And there's a system where they put in some alcohol to separate the halves and the quarters, because when you crack it, different pieces come out.
Into different sizes.
So because of that, we say that shelled pecans should have a hashgacha, despite the rule that I said earlier. And obviously, if nuts are kitnius, like peanuts, there's nothing to talk about.
Right.
But that would be. So there are ways to do it. There are places that do sell whole, or unprocessed nuts. You certainly can buy that on Pesach. That would be a good example, yes. If you want to make something quickly with that fish we talked about, and you're in a place and there's no kosher Pesach oil, extra virgin olive oil, that's a cold press, that's what it means, we believe is okay for Pesach, even without a hashgacha. It's known in the industry as EVOO, extra virgin olive oil, and that would be something. There's some people that are more
again, just to make sure there's no misunderstanding, even without any hashgacha?
Yes.
Not just that it has hashgacha, but it doesn't have hashgacha for Pesach, even without any hashgacha.
There's no heat involved. Right.
So all year round, really, you could buy extra virgin olive oil for food for food.
I was just in a place way out there on an island somewhere where we were doing a small, and there was no food. We were with a group of Rabbanim, we were starving, and they said, "Okay, Rabbi, do your magic, go into the kitchen, do something." So I sat with the chef, and we found some salmon, the skin on, and whatever, we found some kosher fish raw, I said, okay, you have any oil? Nothing was kosher. Any extra virgin olive oil? Oh yeah, here we go. New bottle. You know, we took it out, some spices, brand new, and we double wrapped it. I put it in to make a Bishul Yisrael. It was a wonderful meal. So, okay, next time that happens, you know, but that's an example.
That's when you're lucky enough to be traveling with Rabbi Fishbane.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, thank you for these tips before Pesach. And again, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.